I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hey, good evening and a very happy new year. I'm Neil Fox, looking after Mark Dolan tonight. And on the show, in my big opinion, I'll be discussing the New Year's resolutions certain politicians should have for 2023. I'll also be welcoming Olympian Sharon Davis, former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney, and Gender Nebulous podcast presenter Frida Wallace to debate whether Britain's triathlon's open category to include transgender athletes is fair for all. In the news, is dry January a bad idea? Is the cinema making a big comeback? And we'll look ahead at what's in store for the royal family in 2023. I'll see you after the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Neil. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Catholics have been praying for former Pope Benedict at mass services across the UK after he died, aged 95. Earlier, Pope Francis paid his respects for his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican. Tomorrow morning, Pope Benedict's body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica. He'll lie in state for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. The president of Ukraine says his military shot down 45 drones in the first few hours of 2023 as Russia continued its attack on the country. Speaking as missiles rained down on Kyiv, President Zelensky posted a New Year message saying he hopes the war with Russia will end this year. Ukraine's armed forces say Russia launched 12 airstrikes across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of New Year impossible in public spaces. The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the United Kingdom in 2022. According to the Home Office, there's been a steady increase since 2018, when just 299 people were detected crossing. The Prime Minister has promised to introduce laws this year, making it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. And bus fares have now been capped at just £2 for more than 4,600 bus routes across England from today. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. It's hoped the cap will help passengers travelling for education and work amid the rising cost of living crisis. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back now to Neil Fox.
Yes, I'm Mark Dolan tonight with me, Neil Fox. In my big opinion, I'll be discussing the New Year's resolution certain politicians should have for 2023. I'll also be welcoming Olympian Sharon Davis, former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney, and gender nebulous podcast presenter Frida Wallace to debate whether British Triathlon's open category to include transgender athletes is fair for all. In the news agenda, is dry January a bad idea? Is the cinema making a comeback? And we'll look ahead at what's in store for the royal family in 2023. Now at 10:30, we'll bring you tomorrow morning's front pages, hot off the press. And with me throughout the show, I've got a great panel for you tonight. Journalist and author Hilary Freeman. We've got former Brexit Party MEP Belinda DeLucy and political commentator Benjamin Loughnane. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show tonight, and I think you might want to be getting involved. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk. So, for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always some pretty big opinions. Let's start with this one. So, we've nearly made it through the first day of the new year, and I'm hoping that if you made any New Year's resolutions, and around 50% of us make them every year, you haven't broken them already. Otherwise, that would be pretty unimpressive. It all started really in ancient Rome after Julius Caesar had a little tinker with the calendar and established this day, January the 1st, as the beginning of the new year. This was about 2,000 years ago. It was named after Janus, who was a two-faced god whose spirit inhabited doorways and arches. And it had special significance for the Romans because they believed that Janus symbolically looked backwards into the previous year and ahead into the future, and then offered sacrifices to the deity and made promises of good conduct for the coming year as well. Now, early Christians adopted this idea as well, and it became traditional on the first day of the new year, like this one, to think about one's past mistakes and resolve to do better and be better in the future. So just imagine if we could create a new tradition now where our leaders had to publicly state their resolutions for the coming year and acknowledge their mistakes and cock-ups over the last, while publicly resolving to do better and be better in the coming year. Now, some people may say that's exactly what each party's manifesto does, doesn't it? But if we're going to be really honest here on this first day of the year, I don't think any of us anymore believe a word that's ever said in any of those manifestos. They sound impressive. Almost all of them are unrealistic to actually implement. They're costed out by Cloud Cuckoo Land's finest accountants, it seems. And as always, they overpromise and sadly under-deliver. And now we've come to accept this as being acceptable. It shouldn't be, of course. And at some point, it must stop. If any of our advertisers on this channel made false claims, their ads would be removed and they could be fined. In the real business world, if the CEO and the board of a company didn't do what they told their shareholders and investors they were going to do, they could be removed. If they wasted company money and resources, they'd be held accountable, right? But politics seems to exist in some parallel universe to the real world most of us live in. So let's find a way of focusing our political leaders' minds on not some abstract next 5 years, but to just the year ahead, and give us one New Year's resolution that they're going to try to achieve, and then let's look back next year to see how they did. So what do you feel our political leaders should resolve to do? Well, I've got a few. My suggestion, maybe for the Prime Minister, is to resolve to get a firm grip of his party, to calm everything down, but to give us a sense of stability and a sense that he has a plan to somehow bring together clearly a very fractured Conservative Party, both in Westminster and around the country, so it feels like the party that people actually voted for in 2019. Oh, and then please deliver on all those Brexit promises that will apparently transform our nation. That'd be good. Keir Starmer's resolution should be to finally tell us what he and Labour would actually do if they were in power, rather than constantly pointing out what a pig's ear the Tories have made of it so far. I mean, I know it has, of course, been the gift that keeps on giving and giving, but going forward, we really need to see what a potential Labour government would and could actually do. Nicola Sturgeon, perhaps resolved to get on with her job as Scotland's First Minister and simply listen to the people who elected you, rather than constantly annoy Westminster. And for the Lib Dems, well, let's keep it nice and balanced. A good start for your resolution would be to make sure people in the UK know who your leader is, because I had to Google it today just to remind myself. Seriously. Oh, it's Ed Davey, in case you didn't know either. So how does all that sound to you then? Keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Each leader, one resolution, and this time next year we get to question how they did by looking back over the last year with them and talking honestly. Politics, simple, straightforward and accountable. Who the hell am I kidding, eh? So, this is my question to you this 1st of January. What resolutions do you think they should make? Would love to hear your thoughts. The leaders' resolutions, please. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Now, reacting to my big opinion tonight are a pretty top-notch panel. We got journalist and author Hilary Freeman, former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy, who seems on very feisty form, and political commentator Benjamin Loughnane as well. So, Belinda, let's start with you. Have you actually made any resolutions yourself?
Myself, sort of. I tend to always break them, though, and I quite like having a few vices. I think it makes the life more bearable. But, yeah, just to, use my phone less and stop vaping so much, which I took up during lockdown, which wasn't a good idea, and to keep my children out of the house a bit more and out in the fresh air. OK. Benjamin, how about you?
Well, on the subject of giving leaders resolutions, why give them another opportunity to lie and then to, break those promises? New Year's resolutions, I think the way I see it is you should be doing that throughout the year anyway. It's a good time to, refresh your sort of life and go, right, what am I going to do for the year coming forwards? But inevitably, you break those New Year's resolutions. You forget them within a week of New Year. So I think it should be something you do constantly throughout the year, where you always stop and reflect and try to make those changes.
And Hilary, are you going to throw something more positive at us?
Well, my resolution is the same as I make pretty much every year and I never stick to, which is to stay off social media, do more reading and finish my book, which I never get around to doing because I'm spending too much time on social media. But yeah, resolutions, I agree with Benjamin. There's no point just deciding you're going to do something because it's January the 1st. You've got to, if you want to do it, you're going to do it whether it's January the 1st or March the 1st, and you've just got to get on with it.
But maybe it's a bit like the Romans used to do, that the journey of a thousand miles starts with the first step. So just anybody just making that decision to go. And I just think, look, in my monologue at the top there, we sort of hinted about manifestos and no one believes them anymore, really, which sadly is slightly the case. Do you think, in a way, they should be... Imagine how different life would be if they were almost legally binding, if you could do such a thing. What do you think?
I would say that would be quite difficult because, as we've seen in the past couple of years with the pandemic and the war, there are certain things that suddenly can hit a country that put things on a manifesto on a lower shelf. However, what the Conservative Party has pretty much abandoned them, and I can't trust what the Conservative Party say anymore. They preach a lot, very little action. I do think trust has gone. It was it was on a thin thread in 2019, and people made their kind of last chance saloon trust vote in 2019, and I think we've been really let down. So I actually expect very low turnout at the next general election, very sadly.
Well, it's local elections first, of course, coming up, which are always a strange indicator. You can't imagine the Conservatives doing particularly well in the locals, can you, in springtime? But I was just going to ask, maybe Benjamin, do you think Keir Starmer's going to have a better year this year? I mean, he needs to actually lay down some ideas. It's been very easy up to now, let's be honest, just to sort of go, they're doing a dreadful job. But now, when it's looking like they might be having a chance of getting back into power for the first time in a long time, we need to know what they're going to do.
Well, I think if anyone can blow that lead, it's Keir Starmer. Maybe his New Year's resolution should be to form an opinion on something for once. But I think the best thing the Brexit Party did in 2019 was just not having a manifesto at all, because they said, well, look, it's useless. The moment you get into government, the situation changes, the lay of the land is different, you've got to make decisions as they happen. You've got to take every day as it comes, effectively. And promising things, which in 2 years you're then bound by when the situation has changed is, inherently dishonest. You're not going to be able to live up to that. And I think people are now sick of, every day Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss or Boris Johnson, whoever the Prime Minister is today, comes out and says, we're going to set up a new task force, we've got this new policy, and then nothing ever comes of it, nothing ever happens. And I think people have got to the point of exhaustion where they're so sick of being told, this is what we're going to do, and then it never happens. They'd rather not be promised it at all. Just make it a surprise. Just do things and tell us afterwards. Yeah. Tell us what you've done. Don't tell us what you're going to do. Yeah. Just do some stuff and then tell us.
Now, but although we sort of smile and laugh about that, it is tragic in many ways that is what politics have sort of got to in 2023. And Hilary, is there any way that we can, and what do politicians need to do so that we actually do start trusting them again? I know telling the truth would be a really good way of starting that, but I know that the life changes. Who knows what happens around the world? It affects, obviously, decisions, and you have to change. But what can they do? Because at the moment, they're less trusted than estate agents, amazingly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think they need to just be honest, and I think that they also need to show that they care more about people in this country than they care about their own interests. I think they really just need to show people that they care, and I don't think they do. They don't give that impression anyway, most of them.
I also think, actually, when you were talking about truth, politicians need to stop redefining very fundamentally important terms like refugee, like woman, like man. And the problem is that truth is getting so blurred because politicians are now flinging out words that, don't make sense anymore. I mean, we can see with our eyes that the people coming over on boats and all the evidence behind it backing that the majority are economic migrants, and yet still you'll have politicians standing up, calling every single one of them, refugees. And that's what I think is distorting, the distortation of words, the redefining of words. And also I'd say they've been using the word misogynistic a lot recently. The 60 MPs wrote to complain about Jeremy Clarkson's bit on Meghan, for example. Now, I didn't like what he said. I'm not a fan of Meghan, but there was nothing misogynistic in it at all. It was just criticism of someone's and mocking of someone's character. Now, women do that to women all the time, yeah. But now politicians are using the word misogynist to describe criticism of women, or the word racist when people criticise, people based on their actions, not on their colour. And it's all getting mulled up, and politicians are really guilty of this. They need to reinstate the original meaning of these important words that they use in the House of Commons, because that's betraying trust as well.
Okay.
I think that's a lot to do with
thank you for there. We'll leave it for there. I think it's going to be a feisty old show but until 11 o'clock, don't you? I'm looking forward to it. But coming up with British triathlon and UK boxing introducing new categories is an open category fair for all athletes. Get the kettle on. I'll see you in a few.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hey, welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Neil Fox. Thank you for your emails. They're coming in. New Year's resolutions for government and ministers. Reduce your spending in all departments, according to Anne. Linda says Rish's one resolution's got to be to stop those small boats landing on our shores. And Jerry says, I suggest that MPs' resolutions should be to forget any personal ambitions and support the party manifesto that they were elected on. That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? Right, more of them, please. gbviews at gbnews.uk. Right then, as sport continues to struggle with the transgender row, the British Triathlon Federation's new policy for an open category came into force today. The sport's going to be divided into 2 categories for athletes over the age of 12. There'll be a female category for those who are assigned the female sex at birth, and an open category, or in simple terms, all individuals, including male, transgender and those non-binary, who are male sex at birth. British Triathlon said the new approach follows on from a survey of over 3,000 members that found 80% are in support of the changes. Meanwhile, in last week, the World Boxing Council have announced they will introduce a transgender category for fighters, separate to the men's and women's categories. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined by former Olympic swimmer and television presenter Sharon Davis. So welcome along. Happy New Year, Sharon. Is this the right move? It sounds a lot more inclusive and fair to me. Good?
Yes, good. I mean, well, Triathlon have been leading the way, really, in this country with setting that policy. They announced that they were going to do that the middle of last year. And it's a very fair policy. You know, this is about protecting the female category, but creating an opportunity for everyone to be involved in sport. So that's why we have the open category. You mentioned transgender women, so that is people that are biologically male, but also enables people that are biologically female that are on testosterone who wouldn't be allowed to compete in the female category because that would break the rules to be able to compete as well. So this is enabling everyone to be able to compete, but it's also enabling females to still have fair sport, which is what I've always been fighting for.
Well, I'm sure, because, of course, there was the big story around last year, Leah Thomas, the University of Pennsylvania swimmer, who, of course, had transitioned from a man and was just an incredible swimmer and just won everything. And then the weightlifter as well. We had these two really stark cases that proved in a way how things needed to change, however tricky the situation was and however inclusive any governing body was trying to be. Clearly they needed to do some, I guess, lines in the sand and just say, look, we need to make some rules here. And this does seem, I hate to say, like common sense has prevailed.
Yeah, I mean, that is what we've been after all along, really, is basically using the science. So there's 17 peer-reviewed science reports in the world, the last just before Christmas, which shows that we cannot remove male puberty advantage. Now, in Olympic sport, that's anywhere from about 10% to weightlifting at 30%. In something like boxing, a male and a female of equal weight, so this isn't someone bigger or stronger, this is someone of equal weight and height and size, a male will hit 160% harder onto a female structure, which actually is more fragile. Our bone structure is more fragile. So it's incredibly dangerous in something like a contact sport and in boxing, rowing, rugby, any of those contact sports are going to be incredibly dangerous. So it's really important that we put safety first, then we put fairness, and then we make sure we come up with ways to be inclusive, because it really is important that everyone can do sport.
It is. And this, for anyone that obviously is transitioning, it's obviously a hugely emotional time for them. Obviously, by the time they get to be competing like this, they will have transitioned and will have had to have done so for, I think, 3 years is what the IOC is saying. But of course, it has to be fair, because people, I was going to say people like yourselves have trained all your life to do a certain sport, and then maybe if the rules had stood and not changed, there would have been no chance, maybe. The second may have been the best you could have done.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You say 3 years. I mean, actually, in lots of sports, it's way less than that. And at the NC2As, when you mentioned Leah Thomas, it was a year. And that was to reduce your testosterone levels from male levels of testosterone to 10 nanomoles of testosterone per litre. I have less than 1. Most females have less than 1. So, that was 10 times the average female, and they were still allowed to compete, and they only had to do that for a year. The last study that came out pre-Christmas showed that it doesn't really matter. If you carry on training, if you suppress your testosterone, a male will lose very little strength. So it's just an unfair situation. And women have worked so hard to get, some form of equality in sport. We still don't have that. We're still a very long way away from what males have in sport, but we are gradually getting there. And this was definitely going to put us back. So this isn't about anyone being transphobic or anyone not believing that sport is for everybody. This was about saying that biological females, which is half of the world, deserve the right to equal opportunities of success in sport. And let's find better solutions. Let's find better ways. And female and open seems to be the best. But the World Boxing Council also announced just on Thursday that they're going to introduce a transgender league. Now, I'm all for that as well. If that's a way forward that transgender athletes would like it to be, then let's support that too. And let's make the federations work with transgender groups of people and athletes to find things that will work for them.
Now, you came in for an awful lot of stick, didn't you, before, for your views. Why do you think that is? And do you think actually that has it calmed down? I hope it has for you. And do you think this will help calm things down in general?
Yeah, it has. I mean, I think FINA, the World Aquatic Federation, making their stance and deciding that they were going to protect female sport helped a great deal. That was off the back of what they could see happening with Leah. What I didn't want to happen was that for us to have a Leah in every single sport before people did what they already know. We have 2 categories at the Olympic Games, males and females, for a reason. If we didn't have that, women wouldn't win events. It would be all won by men. So that is why we have it in the first place. And to say that there's no difference and testosterone makes no difference is actually ridiculous, So let's be honest, let's work with the science and let's come up with really good solutions. Things have definitely got better. I still get massive pile-ons every once in a while, but, I've only ever wanted to work with the science, and I've only ever wanted there to be fair sport for everybody. And I think when there is fair sport for men, there should be fair sport for women. But, let me give you a ridiculous example of what's going on at the moment in USA Rowing, for example. So USA Rowing have turned around and said in the women's category, anyone can identify as a woman and compete. But when it comes to the mixed relays, in other words, when there's supposed to be 2 women and 2 men, only biological females can take part because it will affect men. Now, you tell me how that is fair.
Well, look, we're going to continue this discussion in just a moment, but for the moment, Sharon, thanks for joining us. And, I wish you a Happy New Year. Really appreciate that. Let's bring in former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney and Gender Nebulous podcast presenter Frida Wallace. So, Frida, welcome along and a very Happy New Year, and also as well, Kelly. How do you feel about these new rules? Do you feel they are fair?
Is that to me?
Yes, sorry, Frida. Yes, it is.
Well, I don't come to this as a sports person. I'm quite willing to listen to Sharon talking about we should follow the science, because I don't follow that kind of... What's interesting to me about this debate is why it's happening now. And there's this kind of... And Sharon has thrown in with some quite transphobic people on Twitter, and that's just a matter of fact. And there's this kind of invasion narrative that trans women are taking over sports and it's going to be a problem for them. It really isn't. You can name them on one hand, maybe, the trans women that are making waves in sport. And also, this isn't a new thing. This goes back to like 1976 when Renee Richards, she was in the US Tennis Open and she played as a trans woman. It didn't create the kind of hysteria that it does now. The reason these things are creating these waves now is because we live in a culture war climate. So somebody like me is seen as the other. You can criticize me based on my otherness. And that's the problem I have with it. I'm all for fairness in sport, because it wouldn't make sense if somebody was winning everything. Like if I started... I'm not a sports person, but say if I entered a sports category, I do a bit of swimming and I just started winning everything, how would that benefit me? Because I'm like some kind of... There's no sort of trans superwoman that's winning everything. That's not happening. So I'm not sure
there was the case of Leah Thomas, and I suppose it highlighted...
She wasn't winning everything, Neil.
She wasn't, but it highlighted a problem, I guess, and it was a problem that was like, OK, maybe we need to try and be fair to everyone and inclusive for everyone, but how do we do that so that if you happen to be that person against Leah and you felt it was incredibly unfair, that you'd trained all your life for that moment? I know, because the numbers obviously clearly, as you quite rightly say, are very small, but we're just trying to make it fair. I mean, do you think the specific one, for example, and the reason we're talking about it today is, of course, because the rules have come into effect today. So say for British triathlon, there is this open category. Does that seem like common sense to you? Actually, can I bring in you, Kelly? What do you think?
Well, I am from the sporting world, and I do believe in fair play and safety first in sport. But you talk about the swimmer. She only won one race. She was in about 8 races that day, and she didn't break any records like you like to say she did. And the New Zealand weightlifter absolutely didn't even qualify after the first round. You have to remember, sport's not just about the physical side, it's also about the mental side. And a trans person goes through a hell of a lot of stuff to get to where they are today, and it affects them mentally. I agree with the WBC's rules, what they've come up with. I think that's very good, because that is a sport that you have to have first-class safety. But I think, we will see how the triathlon thing goes. The WBC have obviously set a precedence by setting a trans category, so it's led the way for other sports to follow. It's more of a political decision than a sports decision. But I totally agree. Trans women should not be allowed to box biological women in any form of combat sports. But other sport, I think we have to look at, I listen to Sharon Davis and I respect Sharon's views, and, she's entitled to her opinion, same as we are. But we need more evidence. I work with sports physiologists, and I've got one who's told me, you have a slight advantage, but it depends on how far you are in your transitioning. I know my testosterone level is near enough as low as what Sharon said hers is, because I have my bloods and my testing done every 6 months.
OK. One thing I'd like to ask is, I mean, I guess what is good about this is we can sit down this and we can debate it sensibly and rationally. Sometimes on social media, these things get out of control because it just becomes name-calling. But if we can sit down and rationally and talk about these to make sure all parties feel happy. I was going to, Frida, can I ask you, as a member of the trans community, do you think, how are they reacting to this new policy, say, for the triathlon? Do they feel that this feels fair? Does it feel like common sense at play?
Well, no, it doesn't feel fair because it seems like segregation, and it feels like, well, if I was a sports person, I'm forced to play with men, and I don't have the. I mean, I don't want this to trickle down to the amateur level. I wouldn't want somebody who is trans to suddenly think they can't be involved in sports, because sport is not just about, it's not just about pure science and physicality. It's about striving, being the best person you can be, and being and overcoming things. And I think trans people relate to that because in their daily lives. So when we look at sporting heroes, we're not looking at the stats. We're looking at this person is a great example of somebody that's, you know, fought for what they wanted to achieve in life. And I think there's another layer to the sporting story. So I can understand Sharon Davis saying, you know, we have to look at the science, because there is a sports science. But all that is like, I was thinking about, you know, the women's Euros, the Lionesses.
Yep.
If you look at the parity, there were 32-year-old women on the same field as 17-year-olds. 18-year-olds. And I was thinking, well, if you're going to talk about parity, you can't cherry pick. You know, you've got to, if you had to look at sport completely in the sense of science and parity, Sharon Davis wouldn't be allowed to compete because how tall is she? You know what I mean? It's like you'd have to say, well, you're too physically big to be a swimmer because you're going to win everything. Do you know what I mean? So you can't do that.
I think that's rather different, isn't it? Sort of, that I have to say. And Kelly, what do you feel about what Frida said there, as someone who's been involved in sport all your life?
I agree with your view on that. You know, sport is sport. We have categories in sport. You know, and someone, you do get tall women, you do get smaller women, you do get taller men. You know, you take heavyweight boxing. Yeah, Lennox Lewis, who I looked after, he was 6'6" and nearly 17.5 stone. He could fight someone that was 13.5 stone 14 stone and maybe 6 foot. You know, that's just all human bodies are different. But sport has to be
that's kind of what I was saying. Sorry, I just like, so my point of view is, because
there's no such thing as a level playing field in sport. You know, that's referring to, Sharon Davis has got quite big shoulders. She is a very powerful woman and she's a good swimmer, but she has trained for that. You have to remember, sports people train for all their life. And it's also, as I said earlier, it's a mental thing as well with sport. You drive yourself on to achieve something. And we have opposite sides. You know, we have scientists who say there is no advantage. We need the scientists to get around the table and discuss this fairly. You know, we can't use the trans community as a football to be kicked about by, say, right-wing politicians, anti-trans people. You know, I'm all for sitting around a table and talking and discussion, and whatever comes out right, if the science comes out right, which Sharon says 100%, then we go with that. If the science comes out right that trans women don't have an advantage, then we should go with that.
Kelly, thank you. And it's been very interesting hearing all your thoughts tonight and Sharon's as well. And this is something that isn't going to be sorted out today for sure, but at least discussions have started and moves have been made. Thank you. Frida, thank you very much. Kelly, thank you very much. I wish you both a very happy new year. Well, coming up in the news agenda with my panel, is 2023 going to see the return of the Hollywood blockbuster? We've got the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction as well. But next, we'll be asking if dry January could actually be bad for you. Yep, stay tuned.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hey, Happy New Year. It's Mark Dolan tonight. I'm not Mark Dolan, clearly, but he'll be back tomorrow. I'm Neil Fox, looking after things. Thank you very much indeed for your emails. They're coming in, and you're getting quite heated, which is good. Betty says this is about New Year's resolutions for MPs. How about a government actually communicates rather than burying their heads? That would be a novel resolution. Start talking to unions and put proposals for when the country can afford it. Mark in Cardiff says Rishi's New Year's resolution should be to fire Jeremy Hunt. Talking about trans in sport. Julie says biological males are still males in female sports. Why are your trans guests still wanting to have females disadvantaged when other options are now being made available? This after the British Triathlon have decided that today there are two categories. There's female and then there's open, in a way, for everyone else. But this is a debate that's going to be going on, and hopefully people will be getting this sorted out. But let's talk about drinking. Cheers, he says, taking another slug of tequila. God, the show's going to be good. It's January the 1st, and just in case you've woken up and you didn't know which day it was, which means many of you will be partaking in Dry January after maybe a boozy New Year's Eve. I'm sure many of you won't, though. So we're asking the question, can Dry January be bad for you? Helping us answer this is drinking coach, I didn't know they existed, called Sandra Parker from Just the Tonic. Hello there. And also we've got TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons as well. Hello there. Good evening and a Happy New Year to you both. Firstly, can I just talk to you, Sandra? Firstly, a drinking coach sounds like, come on, Foxy, we can get you to 6 pints tonight. Come on. It's like coaching me to drink more. I know it's not that, of course. What exactly do you do and how can Dry January be bad?
Hi there, Happy New Year. So
Happy New Year to you.
What I do
is I work with people who recognise that they've got a problem with alcohol. So they tend to be high-achieving men and women who are drinking more than they would like to. And what I do is help them take back control so that they can enjoy their life more, whether they prefer to go on to drink occasionally, to drink moderately, or to not drink at all. But the key thing is I help them get in control so that they can make the decision themselves.
OK. Now, Ryan, can I ask you, are you a boozer? And would you like to cut down a little bit, maybe, on your boozing? And would you ever consider doing dry January? And do you think it's a good idea?
Well, I love to drink. I'm a social animal. I'm a bit of a party, wild person. And for New Year's Eve, I was out very drunk. I've actually got some wine left over here from last night that I'm drinking right now. And it's very good. And I'd like to say that drinking has so many benefits. And I think people that participate in dry January are pretty dull and boring, because what fun can you get out on a weekend when you're with your friends, you're at a club, you're at a bar, and you haven't got any alcohol? I think that's the most miserable thing I could possibly imagine. So I think giving up alcohol is the worst thing you could do at any point in the year, personally.
Well, look, OK, a slightly extreme view, I'm sure, there, but I'm sure you're out partying last night, as a lot of people were. But maybe if you do feel you might be drinking, not necessarily you want to cut everything out, but as maybe Sandra was saying, you just need to cut it down a bit, because it's, you know, you're doing a bottle a night or whatever it may be, and you just think, we know it's not great for your health. It's lots of calories and it has adverse effect on liver and everything else. Sandra, I mean, obviously, I think Ryan has a slight extreme view on his non-stop partying there. But on a serious aspect, is dry January a good thing to do? Or maybe do we need to look at other lifestyle changes?
Well, I think it's great to examine your relationship with alcohol, but the problem with dry January is most people that drink more than they want to feel conflicted, because on one hand they want to get control over their drinking, but the prospect of January, which is, let's face it, for a lot of people feels like quite a miserable month, the prospect of getting through January without drinking makes it feels quite miserable for most people. So my guidance is that for people that are drinking more than they want to, it's better to look at why you're drinking. And a lot of people need some guidance and some support to understand the reasons why they feel they need alcohol. Simply trying to cut it out for a month, it elevates it to this magic elixir. And I know when I was drinking, I never made it through dry January. I thought dry January was a terrible idea. I thought it made a boring month or a miserable month even more miserable, and it made me want to drink more in February. So it's not a long-term solution, but it's great to examine where you're at. And you know, I don't think it's the best solution, but it's a good idea to look at your drinking for sure.
OK. I mean, Ryan, when you say you can't imagine going out without any booze, I mean, a lot of people obviously have the odd drink when they go out with their friends because it loosens them up. You've had a tough day. You just want to, yeah, maybe, you know, loosen some of those shackles. But also it helps maybe give them a little bit of Dutch courage sometimes in talking to people they wouldn't normally want to talk to. You know, maybe it says more about your personality that you've got to constantly drink there, Ryan, but you can do things surely in moderation. Well, it doesn't always have to be to excess.
No, I agree. I think moderation is good, to exercise some moderation when drinking. I understand there's a lot of health implications when it comes to drinking excessively, but I think you should also examine there's a lot of health benefits as well when it comes to drinking. I was reading studies today, for example, that drinking in moderation can actually reduce your risk of heart disease, reduces your risk of developing kidney stones, it makes you more social, it boosts your sex drive. There's so many benefits when it comes to drinking alcohol that isn't widely discussed. And I sometimes think there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to drinking. I know there's that fun aspect, but then if you drink too much, you're judged by everyone. I think just have a good time. As you've all said, January is a miserable month. We've got train strikes coming up. It's going to be wet. It's going to be cold. Just get a bottle of champagne. Why not? Have fun. Live a little. What do they say in French? Was it joie de vivre or whatever it's
Joie de vivre, yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Live for today. You might get hit by a bus tomorrow. You know, have a glass of wine. That's what I say.
Let me take you up on a couple of things and a serious question, obviously, for Sandra as well to ask, maybe as the last question. Firstly, boosting your sex drive. After a few pints or too much champers, it probably goes the other way, let's be honest. But there you go. Sandra, is booze good for us in any way? I have heard, as we've all heard, maybe some red wine is good occasionally or in moderation. It can be a little bit better for the heart. True?
I think it's that classic case where we hear something that says alcohol's great for us, and we post it to people. Like Winston Churchill lived to be 100, and he drank gallons of gin every day. I don't believe that alcohol is good for you. I don't judge anyone for drinking. The clients that come to me, they want to make the change themselves, and I teach people not to judge anyone else, really to do it for yourself. So. I don't personally think it's good for you, but I also don't believe in banning it, and I don't believe in judging others for drinking. It has to be a personal decision.
All right. Sandra, I really appreciate you being on, and I wish you a happy new year. And obviously, Ryan, you get back to your bolly, OK? Because I hate to have ruined your evening, and I wish you a very, very happy new year. If you are struggling at all with drinking or alcohol, we will put something up on the screen to try and help you, someone you can contact and have a word about. Anyway, after the break, we will be diving into the popcorn, something rather different, as we discuss the return of the cinema blockbuster. We will see you in 3 minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us. A couple of your emails actually about booze and drinking and dry January. Antonia says, I gave up drinking because of a heart problem. Not hard, miss drinking occasionally, so instead I drink non-alcoholic drinks. Alistair says, alcohol is like any drug. It's addictive and just a bad habit. Well, if you're struggling at all with drinking, please go to www.drinkaware.co.uk. Was 2022 the return of blockbuster cinema? The pandemic saw cinema audiences scatter while streaming services benefited from a stay-at-home population. But billion-pound movies like Top Gun, Maverick and record-breaking Avatar, The Way of Water have brought cinema straight back into the spotlight. So we're asking, have we sweetened to the popcorn experience, or are we still a little bit salty about the cost? Now, someone who might know more is the editor of Celluloid Junkie, Patrick von Zychowski. Are we returning to the cinema, Patrick? I kind of hope so, because I love it. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. And people are definitely returning to cinema. And Avatar's proved that, if Top Gun Maverick and all the blockbusters of last summer aren't enough. But the important thing is 2023 is going to be the first post-pandemic year at the cinema, where we're going to have a full slate and there's going to be something for everybody. Whatever you're into, you're going to find it at your local multiplex.
I mean, look, will the levels ever get back to pre-pandemic? I would say no, because during that time, we all got Netflix, and we found these other services, and they weren't very expensive. And all the time, actually, I have to say, I love the cinema. Don't get me wrong. I really try and go as often as I can because I love that big screen experience. But actually, I went to see recently, for example, The Duke. No, that was on telly. It was on, okay, which is a great film, okay, but I don't need to go to the big screen to see that. But I do want to go to the big screen to see Maverick, Top Gun, and say the big Marvel movies and Avatar. Of course, you want that experience of the sound on the big screen. So maybe the movie companies will realise there are some movies you do put on at the big screen, and there are others that actually you just don't need to, and so it'll change and adapt like everything does.
And cinema has been adapting for 125, 127 years, in fact. But here's an interesting fact. Over the Christmas, the biggest film in cinema was Avatar, followed by Puss in the Boots. The third biggest film was Love Actually in cinemas. And the fourth biggest was Elf. I mean, people could have stayed at home and watched those, and yet they went to the cinema because it's an experience. It's not just about the movie. Like I said, it's the popcorn. It's, the great sound, the big picture, the comfortable sofas. And with the kind of film slate we've got in 2023, people are definitely going to be coming back. I mean, for a start, 21st of July, put that date in your calendar. You're going to be seeing an epic showdown at the multiplex when you have the new Christopher Nolan film, Oppenheimer, about the father of the atomic bomb, going head-to-head with Margot Robbie's Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig. Just the fact that they've got two huge films like that coming out on the same day tells you, there is confidence that people will be coming to the cinema.
Also, I saw the trailer the other day that did look just crazy good. Was Tom Cruise, of course, in Mission Impossible that's coming out. Yes. With that amazing stunt. We've all seen and probably looked at that, the making of the stunt. But the money they're throwing at these things now is incredible. And I guess that's part of the reason why, when you go to the cinema, particularly if you take the kids, it is not a cheap experience anymore, is it? In fact, you £5 for like a normal little popcorn, it does feel like slightly you're being ripped off. I know they've got to pay for it. How can we, and the seats are getting bigger and better. That's good. We like that. What do you think they can do maybe to keep the cost down a little bit to encourage us to get back there?
Well, there is definitely that. Cinema is a treat. It's night out for people. It's an indulgence, but you can go to cinema cheap. If you're a film fan, you can have an unlimited card. Let's go and watch as many films as you like, or you can go on cheaper on Mondays or Tuesdays when the prices are reduced, or they do the Meerkat movies where you get a special deal for watching films. But when you have something like the new Indiana Jones film, then definitely you will want to watch it on the big screen. And the same for Mission Impossible, the same for Transformers, John Wick, horror films, films like Scream and A Quiet Place. They really only work in the cinema. And that's what makes people want to get up from the couch and go to the cinema, because it's something different.
Hey, there's one big movie you missed out for next year, by the way, which is Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, of course, but, you know. But those films do so well as well because they're fun, right? A nice escape.
Yeah.
As the movies have always been, they're a lovely way to go in there, turn your phones off, which I kind of like the way they do it, turn your phones off and indulge yourself and go into another world. So you can escape for a couple of hours or over 3 hours in Avatar's case, but, you know, you can transform into a different place for a bit and escape the doom and gloom of January.
Exactly. And we talked about all the strikes and everything. Cinema is the perfect escapism. Chances are it's going to be a pretty dour year. We're going to want that escapism. We're going to want to go and see films and feel good films. Let's not forget about it. So we've got Next Goal Wins coming up, a small film by Waita Taikiki about the Samoan football team that performed worst of all in any international game. They lost 31-0 to Australia. So they hired a Dutch coach to coach them to how to score a goal, any goal, based on a true story, based on a British documentary. Perfect feel-good film.
Lovely. Patrick, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight, and I wish you a happy new year at the movies, OK? Nice one.
Thank you.
Hey, coming up in the next hour, we have tomorrow's papers with full panel reaction, a new scheme that will drastically reduce your travel costs too. We'll see you shortly.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Neil Fox with some big questions. Should the government make the £2 bus cap fare permanent? We'll talk all things royal family in 2023, including Prince Harry's memoirs, which are released in 10 days' time, the King's coronation, plus will we see a slimmed-down monarchy this year? We'll have tomorrow morning's front pages at 10:30 sharp, and our panel will predict their Great Britain's and Union jackasses for 2023. First up, though, the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Neil. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Catholics have been praying for former Pope Benedict at mass services across the UK after he died, aged 95. Earlier, Pope Francis paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican. Tomorrow morning, Pope Benedict's body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica. He'll lie in state for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. The president of Ukraine says his military shot down 45 drones in the first few hours of 2023 as Russia continued its attack on the country. Speaking as missiles rained down on Kyiv, President Zelensky posted a New Year message saying he hopes the war with Russia will end this year. Ukraine's armed forces say Russia launched 12 airstrikes across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of the new year impossible in public spaces. The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK in 2022. According to the Home Office, there's been a steady increase since 2018, when just 299 people were detected. The Prime Minister has promised to introduce laws this year, making it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. And Northern California started 2023 with severe weather over the past 24 hours, including flooding and an earthquake. Storms and heavy rains triggered severe flooding and forced residents in some areas to evacuate. A 5.4 magnitude earthquake forced the closure of at least one bridge as safety checks were carried out. It comes just a month after the last big quake, where 2 people died there. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Neil Fox.
Thanks very much indeed, Ray. The price of a single ticket on most local buses in England is going to be capped at £2 for the next 3 months. Now, this could save families thousands, literally. Some intercity routes, coaches, school day only and airport services are excluded, as well as those services which don't normally allow the use of free bus passes. Bus fares in London, Greater Manchester and Merseyside and West Yorkshire are already capped. So what will this bring to your daily life and local economy across the country? You can get in touch, please, at gbviews at gbnews.uk. So we're back with our panel. Hillary, £2. It's actually really good. It could save families an awful lot of money. People are going to be saying, should this last longer than 3 months?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm always absolutely amazed when I go out of London how much buses cost. I mean, often it's probably cheaper to get an Uber than it is to get the bus. And, you know, buses in London are capped, and I think, you know, we will take that for granted. But it's will make a huge difference to families. I mean, if you get on a bus and there's 4 of you and it's, you know, £5 each, that's just to get from A to B, that's a hell of a lot of money. So yeah, I think it definitely should be something that it lasts for longer, because, you know, but taking the bus is a way of getting people to go into the city centres, which is something that's really badly needed, and it creates community as well. So I think, and of course it stops people using their cars.
Sure.
So I think it should be a priority to keep the fares low.
Now, and although fuel costs have come down over the last couple of months, thank God, because they were ridiculous, they're still incredibly expensive, £1.60 a gallon. So yeah, it's a way of, for people also who don't have cars and have no other option, it's a way of helping them get around cheaper. Belinda, what do you think?
I think it should definitely be made permanent, and I don't know why it hasn't been done before. You know, it's quite clearly clear our high streets are struggling. I also think you can't preach green all the time while making it financially impossible to use your car. Like, you have to put on fares that people can actually, you know, accept and do twice a day, 3 times the school run. Mums take the bus for the school run. Yeah. And as you said, it could be 20 quid if you've got 3 kids. And I hope it does stay permanent. I have a feeling it might do, because to cancel something like that, it's going to be quite a headline. You know, government cancels this in March. So I actually have a feeling maybe this is just a little bit of a practice. And I mean, it's about 4,000 bus routes. I hope it gets expanded to all bus routes outside London. And I think it will be good for the Tories to show some compassion. If they can find money for Ukraine and for, you know, other things that don't seem very relevant to our nation travel system right now, like they can find the money for things like this. They can't keep saying, oh, we haven't got any money, and then doing foreign aid, and then, you know, frittering away loads of money on furlough and things like that when they suddenly find it on a money tree. They have to spend it on...
So I was going to say, when everyone's talking about, or the government keep talking about levelling up, this big expression, this actually seems to be a genuinely sensible way of helping level up.
It'd be a bit Scroogey if they suddenly took it away.
Well, you know, you can't have all these green policies trying to penalise car users and then make it impossible to have any other transport. You know, in London, we've got a great public transport system, but you go outside of London, even like 10, 15 miles outside of London, and it's awful. You know, it's expensive, the buses never turn up, you know, you're there like once an hour if you're lucky, and then that might be cancelled. You're sitting around in a freezing bus stop. You think, well, I might as well use my car, even if they ramp up the prices and put all sorts of costs and levies on it. You know, you end up using the cars anyway, and all that sort of green agenda stuff does is increase the cost of doing it. People continue to do it. It doesn't actually work. The best way to get people out of their cars is to improve public transport. And if you can do that outside of the city centres and actually get people, incentivise people to use that public transport, then, you know, that's a better way of going about it rather than just green communism.
Yeah, I mean, the Westminster's often being accused of just being too London-centric, and politics in general being that. I know a fifth of the population live in the southeast. That means 4/5 don't, right? And you know, at a time when these vast numbers we've been hearing, for example, for HS2 have been banded around for years now, insane amounts of money. You know, do I need to get to Manchester 7 minutes quicker? Not really. You know, think of it could just, if you take that money and put it into bus fares and then put it into all those little railways that got closed over the years, over the last decades, reopen them up to help people go from East Coast to West Coast in the north. Wouldn't that also be smarter?
I do think maybe one way that they could make some money or save some money is by taking another look at the free bus pass thing, because, you know, now that we're all retiring so much later, it doesn't really make sense to give someone who's 60 a free bus pass when they might be commuting to work and at the top of their career, earning the most that they've ever earned. So maybe it should be means tested, or maybe it should, you know, start later.
That's right, Chi. I have to say, I have got my bus pass.
There you go.
You know that. No, I didn't know last year.
I didn't know that.
And when you use it, you kind of think, this is slightly insane. But it's brilliant, but slightly crazy too, I have to be honest.
We've got to get people out and about.
But, I mean, and you make a good point, though. If it only lasted 3 months, at the moment it stops, then, OK, it's hugely popular for 3 months. If it stops...
And
that's
then they
horrendous.
Take it away. I think the press would be awful, and I think they're cleverer than that. So that's why I have a feeling this may be just like a little sort of plan to see how it goes.
Testing the water.
I don't have your confidence.
Oh, something good has to happen this year. And I think we've got to get the high street and shops, everything. They've had such a hard time. We need to get people out of working from home as well, and also get people the chance of living somewhere slightly cheaper and being able to commute easily, and getting the congestion down. People are fed up of, you know, the traffic jams and all that sort of thing. So I think it's good. Come on, Conservative Party, do one good, inspiring thing.
Well, I mean, if it's permanent for London, you know, it's very difficult now to say, actually, we're going to stop it in 3 months' time elsewhere. I mean, it would be awful.
Even in London, I mean, there was a massive consultation recently, and they were trying to get rid of loads of bus routes, and people were petitioning. You know, in my area, they were going to get rid of routes that there were no other means of transport. Children wouldn't have been able to go to school.
There's no good reason for it. I mean, you had Dr. Beeching's cut the railways in this country years ago. London once had the best tram system in the world, and we just ripped it up for no good reason, you know, just got rid of it, tore it all up. And you do have to sort of think, we had better infrastructure 50, 60 years ago than we do now. What's happening? We should be increasing it and we should be improving it, especially when the population is increasing year on year. Surely you want more infrastructure, not less, and cheaper and better quality, not more expensive and worse. And even when there aren't strikes on, trains are cancelled, you know, and then people get forced back into their cars and we go, oh, you're awful, you're polluting, you're killing the environment and all the rest of it. It's like, well, you've not given us any options. You know, we've got to drive because there's no other way of getting about.
People are getting in contact on this. Lee in Salford says, why should we taxpayers subsidise this? Which I'll ask you about in a moment. Jonathan says, this will save me nothing. How many take a bus just for a single journey? Most get a return, especially if you're going to work like myself. And this is actually not correct, as return fares are also capped at £4. All right, Jonathan. But what about why should taxpayers subsidise this?
Well, I think it's the government mismanaging our money in the first place. There are many ways they could get money if they stopped wasting it. They had such a blank cheque culture in our government. They just see that taxpayers' money as an infinite source that they can just dip into. And I think we need to hold them to account more than ever and say, look, you've got the taxes, manage it well so you can help people with their transport. If it came to them saying, oh, we have to raise taxes to fund this, then I think that's different. But I do think they're hopefully trying to arrange money in a better way that this frees up. Like, I would be interested to know where the money comes from. I think it's 60 million that finances it and helps. I think it pays for about 80% of what the councils are contributing.
Yeah.
So I think it is a gift and I think it's doable. It's actually not a lot of money. It's a drip in the ocean. And we want people to
make
move
that money
out.
back. If people are, like, active and they're going places, they're spending more money, the economy's more lively, it's not even... You're not even losing money.
Yeah, the returns are really good for the community and everything.
Yeah, they really are.
Take the bus to the cinema.
Well, exactly. True, but I guess, you know, for the last few years, when you saw the amount of money, and it was eye-watering, those numbers for COVID and what we wanted for PPE and the wasted money we had during those years, which was insane. Actually, you can understand why some people are going, well, if you could, in a way, print money for that, can we not have some money for this, that, or the other right now? And this is, it's a lot of money, but it is a drop in the ocean, really, in governmental terms. You're absolutely right. Should this same thing maybe move on to trains? Because, I mean, the trains, I love going by train. There's nothing nicer. But it's expensive. So take a family on the train.
Yeah, if you try to go from London to any other major city, Birmingham, Manchester, whatever, you spend like over 100 quid. It's cheaper to fly.
Yeah.
To Spain. It's cheaper to fly to Spain than go, you know,
if you want to go shopping in Paris, it's easier than going shopping in London. You know, like, it's ridiculous. And, it's not a case of subsidising it. It's about making it cheaper through other measures. And at the moment, we have a terrible system in this country.
I mean, they're going up 5.9%.
Yeah, I can't believe that. And for what? Not a better service.
No.
Not a better service.
So I don't know what we're paying for. And I never passed my driving test, so...
Oh, me neither.
Safer. Didn't you? Safer for the people on the road.
Should be renationalised?
Yes.
Or run more efficiently, because nationalised always for most people you think in efficiency, but if they were just one company, one set of rails, one company, do you not think that may be smarter, but run efficiently?
No, I don't. That fills me with dread. Absolute dread. The idea...
British Rail wasn't great.
God, no. And then they're so unaccountable then as well. Yeah. I know it's not great now and it needs to be reset, but renationalising the trains, no, that fills me with fear.
I just don't think they should be run by organisations trying to make a profit out of them. I don't see why, you know, if you have it as a not-for-profit that you I think London TfL. They put the money back into TfL, don't they?
Yep.
So why not do that for the national railways as well?
Which is a modern version on nationalising it to a certain extent, but making it efficient, which is what it needs to be, because it was dreadfully inefficient when I was a kid.
So not like the old-style British Rail, but, you know, with a modern slant on it.
All sounds logical. You can see her, she's sweating already.
Yeah, the trains are so much nicer, though. I will give them that. It's a nicer journey. You know, the seats aren't all falling apart. There's not kind of rubbish everywhere. I remember the old days, and I mean, I was young, but yeah, a lot of it was, but you know,
it's a great way to travel now. It is a great, efficient way to travel, and most times it's bang on time and it's good. I know we've got these strikes to get through at the moment, and I guess you can understand maybe if people haven't had a pay rise for a long time, when you've seen the government printing money for the last few years, you can think, can I please have some more? But that needs to be sorted out, because it's
not the best way to
really
public support.
All right, panel, thank you. You're on sizzling form and you're sweating, and it's only January the 1st, the old sound of nationalisation. Right, get yourself a cup of tea, you'll be fine. Right, coming up, we've got the papers at 10:30, and we'll be talking all things royal with Angela Levin coming up after this break.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Neil Fox, and let's talk about the royal family, because 2022 was a very difficult year for them. As we get into January, we wish King Charles and the rest of his family a very prosperous new year. Here with me to discuss all things royal is Angela Levin, who knows her stuff. Angela, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
So, I mean, all those years ago, we had the annus horribilis. As described by the Queen. It was a dreadful one last year, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it really was, actually. I mean, because they had all the COVID around them, and it was very difficult to know how to operate. And what with Harry and Meghan leaving and Prince Andrew presenting a dark cloud over the royal family, I think it was really difficult. And also knowing that the Queen wasn't very well and that she was slowly shrinking, and that without her husband she lost so much of her joie de vivre. So it was a very difficult time, but they came over it very well. I think they got through the pandemic very well, and particularly Queen Camilla, because she has not been known terribly well by people, and she did an awful lot of Zooming and talking to families who had very ill children who weren't getting the help, talking to old people who were on their own, and actually cracking lots of jokes. She's very funny. She's a very mischievous woman. I wrote her biography, which came out a few months ago. But she's hilariously funny, very quick thinking, but very, very kind. And I think that she got a lot of support
for that as well, particularly that on the first month of the Queen's Jubilee year, Platinum Jubilee year, she made a statement, which I think everyone was shocked, that she wanted Camilla to be known as Queen Consort, not Princess Consort. Now, the interesting about that is that when Camilla and Charles got married, they, Clarence House put up that she would be known as Princess Consort. Now, it's a nonsense, really, because if you marry a king, it doesn't happen very often, if you marry a king, you become a queen.
Right.
You can't be a princess. And it was a way of being a bit derogatory about her. She doesn't mind what her title is. She's not one who's a big fuss about it. But there could have been a lot going on in Parliament of saying, should she be princess, should she be queen? And it could have caused a lot of rough and tumble and been quite difficult. So the Queen saying this is what she wanted made it straight, because nobody in Parliament, I believe, is going to actually fight that, because this was one of the Queen's important wishes. So that's made it very straight.
Well, let's talk about the coronation. May the 6th. Notice, of course, it's actually the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla.
Yes, that's
and do you think that, I mean, Queen Elizabeth II's was an incredible ceremony that we know now, watching The Crown, that Prince Philip had said we should televise this because this is a huge moment for the world and the Commonwealth. How are we going to view King Charles III's coronation? Is it going to be a huge affair, or will it be scaled down?
Well, I think that they put their feet in the water gently 2 or 3 months ago when they said they were going to be very cautious about how much they spent because people were having a difficult time with money and they would keep it quiet. And there was a huge noise saying, no, we want it terrific. We loved the pandemic, we loved the Jubilee celebrations. We don't want you to cut money. Let's have it that we can do it so well in this country, and let's have all the wonderful things that go with it. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to be attacked whether they spend too much or too little. That's inevitable. But I think we're going to see all the marching and the wonderful music that actually they do, that Britain does so very well on special occasions.
I mean, the funeral was epic, I have to be. I mean, it was a spectacle that the world literally marvelled at it, and that's what we do so well.
Exactly.
And we did it brilliantly.
Yes.
We really did. And you think it'll be more of the same, do you?
Yes, I'm sure it will. It'll be much shorter. Instead of 8 hours, I think it's going to be 2 or 3, which is plenty, really. It's going to take fewer time for people to go through processing into the Westminster Abbey, because there's going to be 2,000 people instead of about 8 or 10,000 people. But apart from that, I think it's going to be very grand. I believe Camilla has chosen her dress, she's chosen her crown. She's all ready to go, I expect.
It's not from Primark, I'm guessing, either, is it really? Not cutting costs on this one, are they?
Nor TK Maxx or nothing like that.
A question for you. Do you think that Harry's going to be at that coronation?
Well, I think King Charles has been very clever because he said it's open for him, you know. Anybody from the family is welcome. So it's up to Harry to make up his own mind. I don't think they're going to pressure them to come. And I think they'll be in a difficult situation because what you have to do is you have to swear allegiance to the king. You have to go down and kneel. Now, will Harry do that? Will Meghan let him? That's a big question that hangs over the coronation. Everybody has to do that, and so he can't escape. He's got to sort of think about that carefully. I think that it will take a lot of attention away if they come. There'll be a lot of booing. They've lost the love that he once had among the people.
He was one of the most popular, wasn't he?
He was very popular, yes. Other than the Queen, he was incredibly popular. He was very lively, he was full of wit and all that. But I think if you leave it like that, we shall see. But I think it will also depend on the book Spare, which is coming out on the 10th of January. And I read today that Meghan's also got a moaning book, which will come up straight after that. And I think it depends what they say and how rude they are. But It's a difficult one, but I think it's a difficult one for a father, especially a king who's a father, to actually stop a son coming.
Of course, it would be very difficult.
But I think that this keeping it open but not sort of pushing things is just the right way to deal with it. And don't forget, it's Archie's birthday. It's going to be Archie's birthday. So they've got an excuse and say, this is more important.
One thing I must ask you is about, when I was looking at the King's speech, which I have to say, was very good, it sort of gave us an idea of what this new slimmed-down royal family will be. There's obviously himself and Camilla, there's Kate and there's William. We saw Edward and Sophie, of course, as well, and Princess Anne. And Princess Anne, the hardest-working royal, very much under the radar all the time, just works. We've got a printout of all the things she's doing this month, and it's by far sort of more than the others put together. It's incredible. But that's how it's been for years for her. Do you think she'll take on a bigger role?
Yes, she could be one of the 4 councillors of state. If King Charles goes away or he's not well, he has to have somebody to stand in for him. And it was going to be Harry or Andrew, but it's gone through Parliament and he could now choose new people, and he's got his sister, Princess Anne, there instead, and Edward, his younger brother. And I think that's ideal. It's also hopeless if they're not in the country. They've got to be ready. And I think should Princess Anne be needed, she'll be top rate. They seem to be getting on tremendously well, Charles and Anne, now. I didn't know that they were so close, younger, but now they seem to be very solid. And partly that is because they both have a very, very strong sense of duty, and they believed in what Queen Elizabeth did, and they want to carry that desire to be faithful and help the country and the Commonwealth.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for coming on and imparting your wisdom to us. I think we're all excited about May the 6th, I have to say.
Yes.
And slightly worried about what's going to happen with Harry's book and Meghan's book. But thank you, and appreciate you coming. Wish you a very happy New Year. Thank you. Sorry, a bit croaky. Gosh, I need some more tequila. The papers with full panel reaction coming up very shortly. And we'll find out who our panel think will be 2023's Great Britain and Union Jackass. We'll see you after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farrow.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So, Happy New Year, and on the first day of January, let's see what joy the front pages of the tomorrow morning's papers bring us. It's not too much, I'm afraid. Let's have a look. The Mirror, firstly, 500 deaths a week due to the NHS crisis. Up to 500 people a week could be dying due to emergency care delays, a top health boss warns. Awful. The front page of the Eye, Tory voters blame the government for the NHS crisis. A poll shows Conservative voters overwhelmingly believe the party has failed in its management on the NHS in the past decade, according to a new poll shared exclusively with Eye. The Guardian front page, fury at ministers' plans for new real terms pay cut for NHS staff. I mean, cuts, seriously, this is not what we need. Also, a great picture of a lady obviously celebrating the end of an era of devastation in Brazil. So the elections over there. The Mail have got Rishi's triple New Year headache. The scale of the exceptional New Year challenges facing Rishi Sunak was laid bare. The first was the devastating revelation from the nation's top A&E doctor that up to 500 patients a week are dying because of delays. It's awful at the moment. The Daily Star, climate change crisis, barking mad. Councils spend millions on new trees and thousands die. Critics fury over bad job amid extreme weather. And the Express has got 500 patients, again, dying a week due to delays. So, got a great superstar panel joining us tonight, which has been good. We'll see our panellist nominations for the Great Britain and Union Jackass a little bit later on. But let's have a chat. Firstly, Hilary, what do you think? Which, obviously, it's 500 deaths. It's a dreadful story.
Yeah, it's horrific and sadly not surprising, given what's been going on and the cuts. But what the headline that actually struck me the most was the Tory voters blaming the government, because if the Tories have lost their own followers and their own followers no longer believe that they're in charge and in control, and obviously the NHS is important to everybody, no matter what political persuasion you are, because we all need it. I think that's a real, indictment of their governance over the last 12 years.
And bearing in mind the last few years, I mean, how quickly, people forget and politicians forget. Boris nearly died. The NHS was there to save him. We're all out there clapping every Thursday night at the NHS during lockdown for what a brilliant job they did. And then, of course, it all ends and it's all forgotten, sadly. Belinda, what do you... I mean, it's the same story, obviously, doing the rounds. But, yes, when their own voters are saying, I'm sorry, you've lost it.
It's quite a common thread, though, not just within NHS, but I think Tory voters are angry at the Conservative Party and blame them for the migrant crisis, not controlling our borders, the Northern Ireland Protocol. I think Tory voters are starting to be more angry at the Conservative Party than Labour voters are, and this is the big loss for the Conservative Party. They've really alienated their 2019 voters. I mean, they have also been in charge for 12 years. I know at points they were in coalition, but that was, only for a short time. They have had control over this, and now with an 80-seat majority, there's really no excuse. They should have reset the NHS and made big, bold decisions early on, instead of just tinkering around the edges with the NHS, tinkering around the edges with our borders, with immigration. They haven't got the spine to make the tough decisions. They don't have the courage to be disliked by the sort of Lib Dem voters they're constantly trying to chase and who are never going to vote for them. And they've turned their back on their original voters. It's almost like they're completely disconnected from the Conservative voters at the moment.
Yeah.
So you've been in politics as an MEP. And it's easy to sit on the sofa and just say, well, they should do all these things. What should they do? What would you do?
With the NHS?
Yeah.
I would completely change the working conditions for doctors and nurses and concentrate on that more than pay at the moment, because everyone's struggling at the moment. It's not uniquely the NHS staff that are going through difficulty with paying bills. We all are. But working conditions don't have to be so appalling. We need to attract far more nurses and doctors to the profession and keep them there from this country. And start training them up more and giving them more time off. I mean, these doctors in A&E are literally worked to the bone and burnt out. So many are leaving the medical profession at a time when our universities only take 15% of British students onto their medical courses. So the government haven't got a grip of how we are going to staff the NHS, because staffing issues, I think, far outweigh salary payment at the moment. That can be addressed, I think, when our economy gets a bit better.
Except we have a situation, we've got nurses going to food banks.
Well, yes, but they're on... that I don't quite believe. I think that is a bit of an anti-Tory story.
Well...
Because if you are on... I mean, there are plenty of people in the country on, 30 grand average a year salary. Why aren't they going to food banks? And I know it's a struggle, and I love nurses, and I fully back them striking, just not now when we don't have any money. But the food bank stories, I think, was a big optics thing, and the NHS has become a little bit political, and they are using it as a bit of a football bashing thing against the Tories. The food bank thing, I don't think that's the majority of nurses at all.
It's not the majority. I know that GB News have spoken to many nurses who had to do that, sadly. But so it's an ongoing problem. Benjamin, how would you solve this?
The NHS?
Yeah. What is the solution?
The problem with the NHS is it's a golden calf. Any time the government tries to go anywhere near it, everyone just goes, no, don't touch it, leave it alone. But there's clearly problems that need to be resolved. But they're not allowed to do anything at all. If they say we have too many agency workers, we need to rely less on agency workers, we're paying them above the odds to come in, and a lot of those people are former NHS staff who've gone to agencies because they want more flexible working hours, better conditions and more pay. Well, if we say we can offer that from within the NHS rather than having so much regulation and all the things which make it impossible to do that internally, if we make it more efficient, all the rest of it, it would be a lot better. But you go anywhere near it and all the left-wing press go, stop it, don't touch the NHS, it's a golden calf, we're not allowed to do anything. So the government are in a bit of a catch-22 situation, but I think the Mail have got it right. It's not just the NHS. The migrant crisis, that's a huge problem as well, and many other issues which people are getting fed up of. There's never been a better time in this country for a third party. No one wants Labour, they think things will get worse. No one wants the Tories. They've had 12 years to do something and they've done nothing in that time. There's never been a better time for a third party. I think, anyone who stands up and goes, we're going to seize the opportunity, will gain a lot.
What's interesting, though, is, and I think we were probably all as shocked, because we were sitting here together, on those news headlines when it said 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, because it was in 2018, 299 migrants crossed, and there were, 46,000 last year? I mean, that is a staggering number of people.
Yeah.
I mean, we were discussing this last week with our panel as well, going, that's 46,000 people who have been conned out of a lot of money by some evil people who are putting them on boats and taking $5 grand a pop for it. Why don't we get some people out there to stop it from that end?
Just let's stop. They're not paying this up front. A lot of the time it's a loan. They end up in very low wage work in car washes or worse, organised crime.
Like the black economy.
Exactly, the black economy, and they're paying it back to the traffickers in this effectively indentured servitude. So you've got a black market slave economy happening in this country as a result of this crisis, because they're not paying it up front, they're paying it back through this work, and we're allowing it to happen. We're letting it run out of control.
But the government could pass emergency measures. They did it during COVID like that.
Yeah.
So why couldn't they stop Albanians? Like put a motion through last week, get it done.
They don't really care. I actually think they don't care about it.
If they wanted it done, it would be done by now. And the people just don't have faith that the Conservatives want to reduce immigration, that they want to solve the boat crisis, because the black economy actually gives millions and millions of pounds worth into our economy. And it makes you wonder, why are they so relaxed and slow about actually making tough decisions to stop this? Because Germany rejects Albanians from safe countries. Why haven't we passed an emergency? It is a crisis.
It is. I mean, the numbers are huge, clearly, of whoever these people are. And this is just an enormous amount of people, and it just seems to be, we don't know who they are, who these people are coming across. We want the right people to come to our country. We need great people with skills. We need people.
We need doctors and nurses.
This isn't solving the NHS crisis. This is fueling the black market. It's fueling crime. It's fueling indentured servitude. These are not positive things to the country. You might make a case for immigration, saying we need to plug shortages in, labour markets or whatever. I personally would say that we can recruit people from this country and train them up rather than doing that.
And stop taking them from poorer countries that need their medical staff.
But that's a separate issue. When you've got it entirely going towards the black market economy, that's a disgrace to the entire country, and it should be stopped.
Is there any way that we can take the NHS out of politics? Because,
too late.
Because, well, I know, but it almost needs a reset button, because it gets kicked around like some kind of political football all the time, and it's too precious, it's too good. Everyone's envious of our NHS, and we all need it at times. But it gets used, doesn't it? It gets used for political reasons.
Well, do you remember the Olympic ceremony? When it was, it was like, this is Britain. This is what the world envies. Yes, yeah. But it is like what if you say to people, what makes Britain British? That is one of the main things that people come up with, isn't it?
It really is.
So it really is important to us, and I think we've forgotten what it must have been like before the NHS. If you didn't, and you see in America, people die because they can't afford to get healthcare.
It's shocking. I'm just going to look at one other story while we've got you there, and you're on such flying form this evening, panel. Thank you very much. We were just discussing royals, obviously, a moment ago. The front page of the Mail, William's relationship with Harry. That's the key. I'm so sorry. It's New Year. William's relationship with Harry hanging by a thread. It's sad, isn't it? From these two boys who grew up, we watched them all grow up so close, so tight, particularly after what happened with their mum. It's sad.
I can't believe there's even a thread left. I'm surprised it's got anywhere to hang.
I feel really sorry for William because he's got a lot of responsibility. He's got to be the next king. He can't do anything publicly. He's got to try and do this privately. And it just seems as though Harry is resistant to any attempt at reconciliation. He's gone off to America. He's writing this memoirs. He's done this documentary. And he clearly has a lot of, unresolved trauma and issues around the family. And, of course, William is very limited in what he can do to reconcile that, and it must be very difficult when you're in such a public position, there's so much scrutiny around you. It's hard enough when you don't have that scrutiny to resolve family issues. It must be so much harder for William.
Yeah. Are you excited about the coronation?
So excited. I'm already planning it. And I've already told the girls we're going to get our tents, we're going to camp the night before. And it's such a huge moment. It's such a historical moment. We don't know how long we have to wait. Hopefully a long time, I want King Charles to have a very long life. But it could be a once-in-a-lifetime, chance for people. And it brings the country together. And it's so easy to be full of division. and we're the envy of the world. People will be flying in from all over the world to get a little bit of taste of who we are, our culture, our history, with this coronation. This is what people love about our country. That's why the monarchy brings in so much money from abroad.
I've got a funny feeling that he doesn't... I don't know what it is. Something about body language, maybe.
I felt the energy already.
Yeah, I really feel it in the same way.
Not very good at hiding it. Yeah, I honestly, I couldn't care less. I don't wish them any ill. I'm not, I wouldn't even say that I'm a particularly a Republican.
Yeah.
I'm fairly happy that we have a royal family. But, it's problematic to me, but, I don't mind that much. But I really, honestly, it's like, oh, God, another bank holiday where there's no school is kind of my attitude to it another day.
It's all about childcare issues. It's what it is. The issue with King Charles is all about your childcare. Yeah. So selfish.
I know. But no, it's just, all that sort of pomp and circumstance and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting to watch. I'll watch, I'll watch it for half an hour. I'll watch it on the headline news.
Well, you can come and join me.
Very welcome. Put a tent on the Mall.
Bring the kids.
Are you excited about this?
Look, it's a fantastic opportunity. It's one of the things that will really, I think, unite a lot of people. Maybe not Hillary. But we've had so much division over the past few years. And when the Queen died, people really came together. And it would be great to have the same thing, but in less sad circumstances. To have a great sort of, celebration. Everyone gets together. The whole world is focused on.
And I hope Harry doesn't come, because actually it will take away the attention. The papers will be filled with Harry and William instead of...
They have to invite him, but he should do the polite thing and perhaps not come.
Just send a gift.
As our guest said, it is Archie's birthday that day, so that's a pretty good excuse. Yeah, you see. So who knows? Anyway, I mean, it's been fascinating. We do it well, though, but there's no doubt that this royal family now, from where we are, needs to move on from where it was before. History's changed, times have changed, people's expectations have clearly changed of what a new modern royal family should be in a more inclusive world, potentially. So I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I'm going to be glued to my screen. I love it, I have to say.
I think Charles is more political than Elizabeth was, though, so he wants to be more involved in politics rather than less, so perhaps that might be an issue of contention.
Well, that certainly could cause some problems.
Yeah.
Hey, could be an interesting year, right? There you go. We love it.
Get your flags
Lots
out.
to talk about. Up next, this could be good. Our panellists' nominations for Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But after the break, do we need Easter eggs on the shelves already? Seriously, I know, it's New Year's Day, it's mental. See you in 3.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hey, just in case you had a really crazy night last night, you know it's New Year's Day today. And I only mention that because we've just had Christmas, but now we already have shops putting out Easter eggs. I know this sounds daft, it's true. Please give us a break. Look, here come some pictures of shops with, there we are, right, shops putting up Easter eggs. This is Boxing Day. It happens sooner and sooner every single year. Honestly, what do you guys think? Belinda, I mean, there should be laws about this kind of thing. I mean, we can't even get through New Year. This is literally New Year's
Well,
Day.
I can't resist a bit of chocolate. Whatever shape egg it comes in, I'm up for it. I just think they should just have permanent little Easter egg stand, because that's how it's going to be. It's just going to run through the year. It gets earlier and earlier, and I guess it spoils it a little bit, because it's quite exciting when the new thing comes out and you have an Easter season.
Yeah.
And so it kind of dilutes it a bit, it being all year round. But I think that's the way we're heading. And
You just want to be drip-fed Lindt bunny.
I'm just happy there's more chocolate
Intravenous
around.
bunny goes in. It's lovely.
Has Valentine's Day been cancelled? Because normally after Christmas,
Exactly.
it's all the Valentine's chocolates before they put out the Easter eggs.
I mean, I understand it's all about, in a way, it's business, and that's great. OK, so we've had Christmas, then you got the New Year sales, right, gone. Right, next up, it's like, let's hammer Valentine's Day, Feb 14th, then we'll do Easter.
Yeah, so what's happened to
They just thought,
Valentine's
stuff it,
Day?
let's go straight on Boxing Day.
Don't say that it's been cancelled.
Feed the nation.
Exclusive.
I know, exclusive here. What happened
Really,
to the
cancel,
chocolate
they can't
hearts?
cancel. Although
No more love.
that also becomes a little bit over-commercialised.
Oh, totally.
But they all do, clearly.
Totally.
Benjamin, I
Well,
mean...
it is the commercialisation, definitely. It's as soon as Christmas is over, it's like, right, now what's the next thing? What's the next big thing to generate the money?
Yep.
But, you know, Christmas starts on the 25th. It's supposed to go up, you know, got the Epiphany on 6th January, and it goes all the way up to Candlemas, depending on how religious you are, you know, in February. But it seems as though Christmas is December or, you know, after Halloween, up to the 25th. Then suddenly it's Easter or Valentine's Day. And it's all gone sort of out of whack, and it's definitely driven by the market.
Yeah, money.
Well, let's talk about our greatest Britons. And I was going to say, would you say jackass or jackass? Jackass sounds so British.
It does.
Oh, jackass, darling, lovely. Anyway, let's talk about greatest Britons to start with. Hilary, who is we're trying to predict. We normally do it of who's been the greatest Briton and greatest jackass of the week, but this will be predicting who we think by the end of next year, when we're sitting chatting again, who will have been the greatest Briton, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know if he'd been the greatest Briton, but I've chosen somebody who doesn't get a hell of a lot of fanfare and really is, you know, somebody that we should aspire to, particularly in business when we have so many villains, you know, that we, you know, Philip Green or whatever. And this is Julian Richer, who's founded Richer Sounds. And he, apart from the fact that Richer Sounds donates, I think, 15% of all their profits to charity, he set up loads of different organisations and charities and business initiatives, all in the aim of trying to make society a fairer place and a more equal place. And he's just started a new one, which I think is going to be quite big next year, called the Fairness Foundation, which is researching, you know, how to make society fairer for everybody in it. And I just think, you know, he deserves a bit of praise for that. So.
We like a bit of feel-good, thank you.
Yeah.
Benjamin?
Mine is a bit controversial, and this is either going to age very well or very badly. I've gone for Boris Johnson, because I think if he comes back, that'd be huge, that'd be hilarious. If he stages this huge comeback, you know, Rishi crashes and burns, and, you know, you get Boris and he storms on to win another election, it'd be incredible. Now, it could go the other way, it could be terrible. So this is either going to age really well, in a year I'll be back here going, I told you so. Or I'll just quietly forget that I ever said it.
Okay.
I'm going to hold you to it.
There you go. Really? OK. And Belinda?
I predict that Nigel Farage is going to be a bit of a hero this year. He tends to always step in when the country faces Labour or Conservative parties who are just not fit for office, where the country is rejecting both of them. He has saved this country from ever-evolving, power-gobbling projects like the EU. He's saved democracy in this country, our sovereignty. He is the man that's made the most political change in my lifetime. And I have a feeling his sense of duty to this country is so huge. It's so much more important than a lot of things in his life which are, you know, material to all of us. He just puts this country and its people first every single time. And if we do hit a point this year where Rishi and the Conservatives just constantly keep letting us down again, and Labour just, you know, it would be far much worse under them anyway, I think he could come in, swoop in and save us again.
Well, let's see. Right, jackass. Let's do it then. Hilary?
Well, going back to what we were talking about very shortly ago was Prince Harry. I think that his book is about to come out, isn't it? And I have no idea what it's going to say. I have got a pretty good idea what it's going to say, actually. I don't know what more he can say that he has already said, but I think he's really, you know, not going to do himself any favours this year.
OK. Benjamin?
I've gone for Jeremy Hunt. who is the de facto Prime Minister, you know, with bringing in this stuff about we're going to stop all these people coming from China unless they've got tests and all the rest of it. Well, that's just opening the door back into that COVID nightmare we had for 2 or 3 years. And I think, you know, he was a zero COVID fanatic. He was on a podcast talking about his sister living in China, saying how they welded the door shut. But he wasn't saying it like a bad thing. He was saying it's so inspiring that they welded the door shut. I wish we could do that here. Well, and now you start to see it coming back, and I think, you know, Hunt for me.
Let's try... Briefly, Belinda.
Briefly, very quick. Well, it's very linked to my first one. It's actually the Conservative Party are the jackasses. No, great MPs in there, some who I really respect, but as a parliamentary party as a whole, I think they've just squandered everything that we've given them, turned their backs on their voters. I can't see how they can make it up to us in the next year or so. I just can't see it, and I think they have to be the biggest jackasses that I've come across in politics, because they've squandered the big gift we gave them. I don't think it's going to get any better.
OK, well, look, thank you for coming out on New Year's Day. It's been very entertaining. Thank you very much. Hilary, thank you. Belinda, thank you very much. And obviously, Benjamin, wish you guys a lovely New Year. And let's come back in a year's time to see how right or wrong you were.
You may not be here.
Mark Dolan is going to be back tomorrow. Yes, the big man will be here. Thanks very much indeed for watching tonight. I wish you a very happy New Year. Headliners is coming up next.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK will have a cold and frosty start for many on Monday morning, cloudier in the south. So after a very cold start, temperatures will slowly rise across Scotland on Monday morning under mostly clear skies. However, we do have a few showers on the way. These will be mostly across the Western Isles. It'll be a bright and cold and frosty start for many in Northern Ireland, but with some isolated mist and fog patches in places as well. A few showers will continue to affect parts of northwest England, but there'll be some decent sunny spells, particularly the further east you go. A rural frost is possible in places across Wales, but for most it's a bright start to Bank Holiday Monday. Cloudier across the far north, perhaps with an isolated coastal shower or two. Meanwhile, looking at the East Midlands, and it's a fine but chilly start today with mostly clear skies across the region. Temperatures down a little bit, but they could just rise into double figures. Light winds and clear skies greet many across East Anglia on Bank Holiday Monday. However, there will be a little more in the way of cloud across the far south. Cloudy across southern counties first thing, with further outbreaks of light and patchy rain, but this will clear in places during the morning, feeling chilly. The rain and cloud across the south will clear, with most places enjoying a dry and bright day, feeling cold in places. That's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.